Imagine, like, digging in a dusty trench in Turkey in the late 1800s, right? You're looking for ancient pottery.
Mhm.
And then you accidentally unearth the actual fire-scarred ruins of Troy.
Yeah, that was Heinrich Schliemann, right? Unbelievable moment.
Exactly. Or Arthur Evans finding the literal labyrinth-like palace of Knossos in Crete. Suddenly it's like, oh, these fairy tales aren't actually fairy tales anymore.
Right. It completely shatters that neat little boundary we like to draw between myth and reality.
Yeah.
You suddenly realize these stories were anchored in the dirt and stone of the real world.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. So welcome. We're exploring this really comprehensive documentary transcript that traces the vast timeline of Greek mythology.
But just to be clear, we're not here to just recite bedtime stories for you today.
No, not at all. We want to uncover the engine underneath these myths. We're looking at why these specific tales survived and, what they tell us about human psychological evolution.
Yeah, because it's a huge journey. We're going to trace how ancient people went from being absolutely terrified of these chaotic cosmic forces.
Just totally at the mercy of the elements.
Exactly. All the way to building a society that's grounded in human laws and jury courts and philosophy.
Yeah.
These narratives were essentially the original blueprints for survival.
Right.
Ancient humans used these stories to explain violent natural forces, to build moral systems, and ultimately to define the limits of human ambition.
They were just trying to make the unpredictable universe predictable for themselves. But to understand how they did that, we have to start at the absolute beginning, which is, making order out of a terrifying void.
Right, the cosmic family feud.
Yeah. The Greek creation myth basically starts with chaos, just this vast, unformed emptiness. And then comes Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky. And almost immediately, the universe just devolves into a total bloodbath.
It is an incredibly violent beginning, but, that reflects how early humans viewed nature. Uranus looks at his own monstrous children.
Like the Cyclops, right?
Yeah, the giant cyclops. And he's just disgusted.
Yeah.
So he forcefully suppresses them, literally pushing them back into the depths of Gaia.
Which is horrific.
It's a brutal attempt to permanently bury the ugly, unpredictable parts of creation.
But Gaia does not take that lying down. She physically rebels. She crafts this unbreakable sickle out of hard metal, and she convinces her youngest Titan son, Cronus, to ambush his father.
Right.
And Cronus literally castrates Uranus. But the detail in the sources that really forces you to pause is what happens right after that.
Oh, the sea foam.
Yes. From the sea foam that violently churns around Uranus's severed parts, Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, is born.
You're touching on a really fundamental template for the entire Greek worldview there. I mean, you have a moment of universe-altering brutality.
Yeah.
You have the sky being violently separated from the earth, which, scientifically creates the space for weather and atmosphere. But from that exact same bloody incident emerges the ultimate embodiment of desire.
It's like creation and destruction just existing right next to each other.
Precisely. The myth is teaching early humans a hard lesson. Creation and destruction are not opposites. They're forever existing side by side.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because the violence doesn't actually fix the paranoia. Cronus takes over the cosmos, but he gets a prophecy that one of his own kids will overthrow him.
Right. So he decides to just eat them.
Yeah, he swallows his own children the moment they're born. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. It's like watching a desperate, ruthless CEO trying to freeze a corporate hierarchy to prevent a hostile takeover by the younger generation.
That's a great way to look at it. He's consuming his own future just to maintain the status quo. What's fascinating here is how the sources highlight a shift in how power operates.
How so?
Well, his wife, Rhea, doesn't use brute force to stop him. She uses deception. She feeds him a stone wrapped in cloth instead of their youngest son, Zeus.
Right, Zeus is raised in secret.
Exactly. And eventually, he poisons Cronus, makes him vomit up the fully grown siblings, and that triggers the Titanomachy.
This massive universe-shaking war. And Zeus allies with the Cyclops and those terrifying 100-armed giants, the Hecatops.
Yep, the heckin' shares.
Right, and they banish the Titans into the dark abyss of Tartarus. So Zeus wins. But he doesn't just win by being the strongest guy in the room.
No, not at all. And the documentary points out that this succession myth actually shares a lot of structural DNA with older Near Eastern myths.
Like the Hittite myths, right.
Exactly. But the distinct Greek evolution is the mechanism of victory. Brute force might win a battle, but cunning, intellect, and strategic alliances are what secure long-term power. Zeus uses politics to conquer the cosmos.
But once Zeus establishes this new political order on Mount Olympus, things aren't exactly, peaceful. The gods are in charge, but they have these deeply flawed, volatile emotions.
They're terrifyingly human in their pettiness.
Yeah, they hold grudges. And this creates a really terrifying landscape for the newly created mortals.
Because the gods now represent that fragile line between order and chaos. And to maintain that order, they demand absolute subservience.
But humanity just cannot help but push the boundary. Look at Prometheus. He literally steals fire. The sources say he hid a glowing ember in a hollow fennel stalk to bring it down to humans.
Right, giving us warmth, but more importantly, civilization and technology.
And as punishment, Zeus chains Prometheus to a rock where an eagle eats his regenerating liver every single day.
It's brutal. Zeus realizes that if humans have technology, they might become self-sufficient. So he counters by introducing a new vulnerability. Pandora. She's beautifully crafted from earth and water, but she's deployed as a trap. She arrives holding a sealed jar, or box as we usually call it.
And when she opens it, out flies disease, sorrow, hard labor, literally every misery you and I deal with today.
Yeah.
And the only thing left trapped inside the jar is hope. Which, that always struck me as a deeply unsettling concept. Is hope supposed to be a comfort, or is it the ultimate curse because it just keeps us enduring the misery instead of giving up?
The sources suggest that ambiguity is entirely intentional. The myths are establishing that human existence is fundamentally a state of vulnerability. And when humans get too corrupt, the gods don't negotiate.
Right, they just wipe the slate clean.
Exactly, like in the myth of the Great Flood.
With Deucalion and Pyrrha, they survived the flood in a wooden box. But the mechanism for repopulating the earth is so weird. They're told to throw the bones of their mother over their shoulders.
Right, which sounds horrific.
But Deucalion figures out that mother means Gaia, the earth, and her bones are stones. So they throw stones, which become a new, much more humble race of humans.
A race that understands its place. And to manage them, the gods formalized the underworld. It wasn't just one dark pit. It was a highly structured sorting mechanism.
Yeah, you have the Asphodel Meadows for the people who lived completely unremarkable lives. Elysium, which is like the VIP lounge for heroes, and then Tartarus.
Tartarus is maximum security. It's for those who actively threaten cosmic order, like Sisyphus.
The guy rolling the boulder.
Right. And later philosophers like Albert Camus were obsessed with him. His punishment is psychological torture. He rolls a massive boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to slip back down.
I feel like anyone who's ever had a pointless corporate job can relate to that exact feeling.
Oh, for sure. The Greeks perfectly articulated what it feels like to exist under a rigid, unfeeling hierarchy.
But I have to push back on this whole divine setup. If these Olympians are so supremely powerful, hurling thunderbolts and managing the afterlife, why are they so deeply, embarrassingly insecure?
What do you mean?
Well, Athena turns Arachne into a spider just because Arachne bragged she was a better weaver. Apollo and Artemis slaughter all 14 of Niobe's children because Niobe boasted she was a better mother than Leto. Why does a mortal weaver threaten the rulers of the universe?
It seems super petty to us today. But you have to remember, to the ancient Greeks, the gods weren't entirely good or evil. They were the structural pillars of reality. So when a human committed hubris, this excessive boundary-crossing pride, it wasn't just an insult. If humans can rival gods in art or reproduction, the distinction between mortal and divine collapses.
The hierarchy crumbles.
Exactly. The gods respond with devastating cruelty because they are violently defending the fabric of reality.
So as a human, how do you even survive that? You excel too much, you're punished. You don't pray enough, you're punished. Living under these unpredictable middle managers with lightning bolts must have been exhausting.
It was, and that exhaustion forces a massive shift. Humanity realizes they need a bridge. They can't just rely on divine favor, they have to rely on human grit. And that gives birth to the Age of Heroes.
The demigods. But what's cool in the sources is seeing how these heroes operate. They don't just win by swinging a sword harder.
No, they use their brains.
It's like Perseus. He has to kill Medusa, whose gaze turns you to stone. He doesn't charge her. He uses Athena's reflective shield as a rearview mirror, cuts off her head without making eye contact, and shoves it in a magic bag.
He uses divine tools, but human strategy. And then you see that reliance on the divine shrink even further with Heracles.
Right, pop culture paints him as just a muscle-bound brute.
But the ancient texts emphasize his applied intellect. With the Nemean lion, its skin is impervious to weapons. So Heracles wrestles it, and then uses the lion's own razor-sharp claws to skin it.
Or the Augean stables. He has to clean decades of manure out of this massive barn in one day. He literally diverts 2 converging rivers to flush the stables clean. It's environmental engineering.
It is. You see a clear progression. Perseus uses magic tools, Heracles uses the environment. And then Jason and the Argonauts rely on massive collaboration.
Facing the clashing rocks, and they only succeed because of the sorceress Medea.
Who Jason later betrays, tragically. But you also have independent figures like Atalanta, the fierce huntress of the Caledonian boar.
Who only lost her foot race because she got distracted by golden apples. But here's where it gets really interesting. No matter how smart humanity gets, there's a wall they hit. And that brings us to Oedipus.
The ultimate tragedy.
It's the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy loop. The king of Thebes hears a prophecy that his son, Oedipus, will kill him. So he pierces the baby's ankles and abandons him on a mountain.
But the baby is rescued.
Right. Grows up in another kingdom, hears a prophecy that he'll kill his dad and marry his mom, so he runs away to avoid it. On the road, he gets into a traffic dispute, kills an arrogant old man who is his real dad, and gets to Thebes.
And he defeats the Sphinx, not with a sword, but with pure intellect. He solves the riddle, what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon, and 3 in the evening.
And the answer is man, crawling, walking, then using a cane. He saves the city, and his reward is marrying the queen, his mom.
Horrifying.
But the terrifying part is the loop. If his father hadn't tried to outsmart fate by throwing the baby away, Oedipus never would have been on that road.
Which is a profound realization. Later thinkers, like Freud, obviously found deep psychological resonance here. It tells the Greeks, you can be brilliant, but you cannot out-engineer the cosmic order or divine fate.
And when human ambition forgets that, it turns into catastrophic arrogance, which sets up the darkest chapter in the sources, the House of Atreus.
Where human pride just leads to absolute disaster.
It starts with King Tantalus. He decides to test the god's omniscience by chopping up his own son, Pelops, cooking him in a stew, and serving him to the Olympians.
Which, obviously, the gods instantly realize. They punish Tantalus with eternal thirst and hunger and resurrect Pelops, but the psychological taboo has been broken.
The bloodline is infected. Pelops' sons, Atreus and Thyestes, get into a bitter rivalry, and Atreus takes his grandfather's horrific playbook and escalates it.
Yeah, this part is incredibly grim.
He secretly murders Thyestes' children and feeds them to him at a banquet. It is a multi-generational cycle of cannibalistic vengeance.
And the sons who inherit this cursed legacy are Agamemnon and Menelaus. They marry Clytemnestra and Helen.
Setting the stage for the Trojan War. Now, the myth says it starts with the Apple of Discord, marked to the fairest. Paris chooses Aphrodite, takes Helen to Troy, and triggers a massive 10-year war. But let me raise a skeptical point here. We know from archaeologists finding layers of destruction at real-life Troy Hazarlik that this massive war happened. Was it really just about a beauty contest and Helen? Or does this myth mask a brutal regional power grab for Aegean trade routes?
This raises an important question, right? You're looking at the historical reality, which is totally valid, but the myth serves as a poetic exaggeration of real late Bronze Age conflicts.
How so?
The Greeks needed to explain how massive collapse happens. By framing it around an apple, a bribe, and broken oaths, the myth shows how individual choices snowball into cultural devastation.
And the devastation is brutal. Agamemnon sacrifices his own daughter, Iphigenia, just to get favorable wins.
You have the bitter feud between Agamemnon and Achilles.
Achilles dragging Hector's body around the walls of Troy.
And it culminates in Odysseus' cunning Trojan horse trick, leading to this fiery, ruthless sack of the city.
The heroic age literally burns itself down, but the fallout forces humans into a totally new reality. And no one embodies this shift better than Odysseus on his 10-year journey home.
He is the ultimate transitional figure. He has to rely entirely on his own wits. But he struggles to unlearn that old heroic arrogance.
Oh, big time. He blinds the Cyclops Polyphemus cleverly, but then as he's sailing away, he literally shouts his real name out of pride.
Which is a huge mistake.
It ruins everything. It lets the Cyclops pray to Poseidon to curse the journey.
And his crew is just as flawed. They're right next to Ithaca, and they foolishly open Aeolus's bag of winds because they think it's gold, blowing them all the way back out.
They barely survive the cannibal Laestrygonians. Then Circe turns the men into pigs. But the real psychological trial is the descent into the underworld.
Where he meets Achilles.
Right. And Achilles famously tells him he would rather be a living servant to a nobody than be the king of all the dead.
That moment shatters the illusion of the old heroic age. To survive the new world, Odysseus has to invent physical discipline. When they pass the sirens, he doesn't use magic. He ties himself to the mast.
And he makes grim calculations, sacrificing 6 men to Scylla just to avoid the whirlpool Charybdis.
Until finally, after 20 total years, he returns in disguise and strings his bow to slaughter the greedy suitors.
But while he was doing that, back in Greece, Agamemnon gets murdered by his wife Clytemnestra in the bathtub.
And their son Orestes exacts revenge on his mother.
But instead of an endless blood feud, the goddess Athena steps in. And she doesn't use lightning, she sets up a literal jury trial for Orestes.
Which is incredible. This trial marks the transition into the Iron Age, an era where the gods step back, demigods die out, and humans must rely on laws, philosophy, and democracy.
It's like humanity finally moving out of their parents' house. The gods are the parents, we respect them, but they aren't coming down to fix our messes anymore. We have to do it ourselves.
I couldn't agree more. In the Iron Age, myths became moral symbols. Society shifted from worshiping individual heroes to collective civic duties and organized laws.
It's a perfectly structured roadmap of human societal evolution. From explaining thunderstorms as divine anger, to heroes pushing boundaries, to finally accepting the heavy burden of human self-governance. So what does this all mean for you today? The Greeks created the Iron Age when they realized they had to rely on human courts and philosophies. Look at our world today, our supreme courts, our scientific institutions, our algorithms. We think we've outgrown mythology. But are these modern systems just our new Mount Olympus? Are we still just inventing higher powers to save us from having to take total responsibility for our own chaos? Something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and keep questioning the stories that shape your world.
Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others. Thank you for your support.